You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
I'm Katrina, and I love anime.
I'm Steven, and I'm aware of anime.
But what if that affection could rub off?
Perhaps that excitement in her eyes got me curious.
I could offer up some solid anime.
I could give them a watch, just to see what all the fuss is about.
And maybe, just maybe,
I could learn to love anime too.
welcome to Inspired by a Weeaboo. Hello and welcome back to Inspired by a Weeaboo. I am your host Katrina, and with me is my husband Steven.
Hello.
We just finished episode 36 of Fullmetal Alchemist. Steven, what did you think?
Well, they were definitely setting up things going forward.
Mm-hmm.
It almost felt like we missed something the way the episode started, because it started almost instantaneously, not picking up from where we last saw Ed, Al, and Winry, but just like in the middle of something already.
Mm-hmm.
Because apparently some Ishbalans had been gathered up on a train, going to a military camp.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the train had been sabotaged, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Using, I don't even really know what they did, because it's just like they stuck some, I don't know, a blanket or cloth or something into a water supply, and just kind of, because it's a steam engine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that's what did it. But anyway, Ed and Al pop open like a little spot underneath the train, I'm guessing, and they run into Rick and Rio. Those are the kids that we met some episodes back with Scar and some old man, and they were Ishbalan, and they thought Scar was the coolest guy ever at the time. That has changed. We'll get to that. But Ed and Al try to figure out what's been going on and what Scar was doing about or trying to figure out what Scar said about the philosopher's stone that was created in Ishbal. And during this conversation, they mention that they, or at least the older brother mentions that he doesn't like Scar anymore, like he hates him. But they don't really specify specifically as to why as of yet, because again, last time we saw them, they were all on his like Team Scar.
Yeah.
So they were all for it. But anyway, Scar's master, if you will, mentions some old man who was an exile in this one little town, and he should know something about the stone. So they tell Rick and Rio to take the brothers to see him so they can figure out what's going on. And about that time, the military get the hose and the water and the ice and whatever's clogging up their train, whatever it is, I don't know. They get that removed, and they're able to get the train moving, but they get off the train in enough time, so they're away. And as they're trying to escape, they get jumped, and Ed kind of does like I don't know what kind of move you'd call that.
It's not really an uppercut. It's like the move like you use to like break someone's nose.
Yeah.
But he basically like uppercuts Fury.
Mm-hmm.
Which is one of the good guys. Yeah. He's one of Mustang's people.
And while they're being chased, Winry shows up on a tractor to use as like a getaway vehicle.
I wouldn't really call it a tractor, but I can see why you drew that conclusion.
A tractor-esque machine that they ask her if she stole. And she's like, no, I did not. So they get on the railroad tracks and drive away. And they eventually get to, I guess, the area in which they're trying to reach. Comedically, mind you, because there was a funny bit while they were on the railroad tracks where they were having discussions about what is it?
They didn't want Winry to stay with them because they were worried about her getting hurt.
Right.
And it started with Ed asking Winry how much longer she was going to stay. And of course, she was just like, well, kind of being deflective, like, who's going to fix your automail? You know, what are you going to do without me?
Mm-hmm.
And then Al kind of chimes in and says, I also don't want you to stay because, you know, we might have to do something bad and we can't do that with you with us. And she, as they're sitting there discussing, and then of course the boys kind of chime in because Ed and Al talk about the possibility of killing people.
Mm-hmm.
And that Ed, even though he did not mean to kill somebody, has in fact killed someone. And they're just kind of, you know, talking about it, blah, blah, blah. And then they hear a train whistle, and they are literally playing chicken with a train. And Winry tells Ed, you know, do you still think I'm scared of danger? And then whips it off the train and literally scrapes the side of the fucking train with this, like, tractor truck thing. Like, sparks are flying, and of course the boys are, like, screaming. And you get one of those comedic scenes where, you know, the tears are, like, streaming out of Ed's face, and his mouth's all, like, you know, 5 times the size of it. It's just one of those, you know, you get a good chuckle.
Sure. But when they arrive in whatever little village they're going to, the little brother, Rick, kind of has like a flashback to a memory of the war, and they kind of shake him out of it. And
oh, they don't shake him. His brother full on smacks that poor child while he is having a PTSD moment.
Out of him.
Smacks the shit out of him.
And then they go to approach the tent, but then the brothers mention that, or the Ishbalan brothers, I should clarify,
yes,
mention they can't go in the tent due to their religion.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to go, or Ed and Al have to go in alone to see what they can find. And when they go in, they find a marking that looks very, I mean, it is the same as Scar's tattoo.
Yes.
And I think they also saw that in the laboratory. In, the 5th laboratory is what they called it? Or something like that.
Was that one in the 5th laboratory? I know that we've seen it in flashbacks on Scar's brother's wall. And then, yes, the now in this man's hut. But I can't remember if it was in the Laboratory 5. It might have been.
Might have been. Anyway, as they're investigating, they get shot at and peek out, and it's Lieutenant Hawkeye, who is just letting them know, hey, that was just a warning shot, and also just a little payback from doing the palm fist strike to Fury. So they take them back to a military tent, and Winry is still talking to Rick and Rio, trying to figure out what they need to do. And they are back in the command tent. They're discussing the reason that they were kind of gathering up all the Ishbalans. Mm-hmm. And it kind of pointed to, they were concerned that someone was murdering.
Well, if you remember the episode that led up to it, the military had been called in, you know, to hunt Scar, because he had been there with the Ishbalans. It wasn't really, it was like a camp. Mm-hmm. And what's his name? Is it Loki? Yoki. He's the little, you know, Waluigi looking motherfucker.
Mm-hmm. Who was killed, was he not?
Yes, he was killed, but it was Lust who killed him. And she was, you know, her and Gluttony both were there. And Gluttony made like the gunshot sounds, and then Lust, you know, did the little flick flick and killed Loki.
Right.
And it was literally the exact same type of thing they did in the Ishbalan War, in the sense of, you know, starting panic and mayhem and hoping to get the biggest number of casualties.
Right. So they were kind of recounting that moment, and then when Hawkeye, well, not Hawkeye, but
Mustang
stepped in and kind of created a perimeter wall, trying to just be like, hey, everybody just chill.
Mm-hmm.
And as they were looking through some photos of some casualties, they were kind of examining the wound
Mm-hmm.
and realized that it didn't look like gunfire. It seemed more like a very precise wound, like
Mm-hmm.
something very small, very targeted, that they had seen before with the homunculi, and that
Mm-hmm.
one of the homunculi was able to create these little shards, these little things that would be very identical to these type of wounds.
Well, she can do it's not really shards, it's her fingers.
Or her fingers. Okay.
She can extend them and make like the spikes, but she can do it so fast that, you wouldn't see it.
Mm-hmm. So pretty much they're trying to figure out who killed Yoki, and they think
Yes.
that it's an Ishbalan. And Ed now kind of make them reposit their assumptions and say, hey, perhaps, maybe you should be looking at the homunculi instead of the Ishbalans, because this does not seem like gunfire. This seems like something that would be done by a homunculi because of what they saw.
Mm-hmm.
So they tell Hawkeye to reach out to Lieutenant Colonel Archer
Mm-hmm.
and say, this is who you need to be looking for instead. Meanwhile, Winry is talking to Rick and Rio, and we kind of learn their issue with Scar,
Mm-hmm.
where they're discussing what an exile is, and that he has pretty much, I guess, one of their last, I guess it was when they were rounding everyone up from the camps, this Ishbalan camp,
Mm-hmm.
Scar admitted that he was an exile because they were pissing and moaning about some other person being in exile, and he's like, hey, I'm in exile too. And they were just like, what? And so Rick immediately just turns on him, and he's just like, oh, well, if you're an exile, then hell with you. So they just kind of give you some backstory on that, because the exiles are people who use alchemy outside of normal.
No, just people who use alchemy, period.
Oh, okay. So
because
Ishbalans
in Ishbal,
that's right.
or the Ishbalans believe that only Ishbal can create miracles.
Mm-hmm.
So by people performing alchemy, they therefore view it as they are performing miracles, and that is basically like a big fuck you to their god.
Right.
Like it's
It's a religious thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something that it could equate to, like Christianity, but it's just in that whole thing they are defying their god.
Sure.
And it's just, I mean, that's like their one core principle. Don't do alchemy. So anybody who does it is, considered an outcast. They don't want them part of their tribe because, well, you turned your back on Ishbal, so be gone.
Right. So Ed and Al go to talk to the old man that they were trying to seek out, and he reveals that Scar and his brother were, they did not create the Philosopher's Stone like that had been thought or discussed, that's what had actually happened in the moment. So it kind of raised some questions. So if they didn't do it, if he wasn't, because they learned that what it took to pretty much create a Philosopher's Stone was the death of a lot of people.
Yes.
And that kind of put Ed on kind of, questioning how in the fuck are they going to do this now? Because if that's what it takes, that's not something they can do, despite talking about, oh, we can kill, we probably will have to do it one day. Mass genocide is something completely different.
Yes, because they're not talking, like, I don't know if we ever explained, but I know that in one of the other episodes, when they first find out about it, they do say, human sacrifices. So that obviously sacrifices have to be made, but they never had any type of number, as far as I can remember, until this episode, which is where the the old man, who is, one of the outcasts, he tells them that, it's not just like 100 people.
Yeah.
It's thousands to tens of thousands to millions.
Even
like it is whole villages, whole cities. You have to literally wipe an entire group of people off the face of the earth to be able to create a philosopher's stone.
it also says in that moment that what they were trying to do in that laboratory was not going to cut it.
They might have got one of the small ones.
Yeah, but it wouldn't have been...
It wouldn't be what any of them are wanting.
Right.
Because you think of that, like, just the idea of, well, you could sacrifice this amount of people and get this amount of stone or anything like that. If they can do that just to obtain one stone, they're always going to be reaching for something bigger.
Yeah. Also, on another conversation after they were having theirs, Winry was talking to the boys about their mother, and they were kind of telling her about, I guess, her sacrifice and things she did and just what a good person she was, because we learned that they thought that she had abandoned them, because I had remembered that part. And then obviously it was that she was blind. She just couldn't see them. So they were a little confused by that at the moment. Anyway, they went to examine a hospital or something that she worked at. Wasn't that right?
Yeah, she knew Winry's parents.
Right. And they confessed that they knew her parents and they hung out with her parents, and that they were killed by a state alchemist who, based on the way they described it, sounded very much like Mustang. So obviously she's a little devastated by that. And,
remember, she thinks Scar killed her parents.
Right. But then that just adds a worse wrinkle to it if you think about it, because that's even worse than Scar. And they don't know.
Yeah, that's their own government killing them.
Yeah. So she ran off and they were just like, what? So anyway, Winry comes back to find them at the tent, the boys, and kind of have a discussion on what their next objective is, because obviously they have to figure out what their next plan is. But Ed tells Rick and Rio that they're not going to be charged for anything. Everybody's going to kind of be let go, but they will have to go back to camps. And he even said that they were going to let them go back to their home.
Yes, that Ed and Al got permission. Well, Ed got permission to let the two Ishbalan boys go back and live with Grandma and Risenbull.
Yeah, but they declined. And when they were talking about going after Scar, Rick obviously kind of brought up where he's like, so you're going to kill him, right? And Ed kind of said, no, I don't think that's what we need to do. And Rick is still kind of stuck on this. Well, he's in exile. He deserves to die. Yada, yada, yada. And Ed kind of takes this moment to make a point where he kind of removes his jacket and shows his automail arm. And he asks if they were afraid. And they're like, no. And he's like, well, first time I saw your eyes, or the red eyes, because the Ishbalans have red eyes, he's like, I was afraid. And over time, he's learned that that's not the way to be. And so if you can be like that, I can be like that. You shouldn't have these reactions to these petty little things. So don't worry about it. So it was a nice little lesson. And Ed asks Winry what she's going to do. And she said that she's going to go visit Hugh's family, which I started to wonder. I did not remember them ever being told anything about Hughes yet. And sure enough, she goes there and she learns about Hughes, and she just seems devastated, and even more devastated because of what the wife is telling her about his I guess what Hughes's mission had been, being in the military, is, keeping Mustang up on high and trying to help him become Fuhrer. And it's just like it broke her even more, knowing that this man is possibly responsible, or is responsible, for her parents' death. And the one person that she really cared about within that group was just trying to push him to, that's just, how do you cope with that?
And I don't even think it's just like, it is, I think it hurts a lot for Hughes. And then, of course, the fact that he died because of this mission. So it's just Winry looking at it as Mr. and Mrs. Hughes was like a whole nother set of parents to her.
Yeah.
She finally started to get, those happy feelings that she missed out on all those years of her parents. And now, because of this man who took her parents, has now also taken the next closest thing she had to a father.
Yeah.
And I think it also hurts even more of what Hawkeye said to her on the train. Because as soon as Winry started asking about it, and then when Hawkeye said that she knew Winry's parents, and she tells her, I don't know what you heard, but soldiers have to do things in time of war that are awful. And you might not understand it, and you might not understand your orders, but you have to do it. So she's basically telling Winry that I know what you're asking, and you're not going to like the answer, but just know it's something that he couldn't get out of, basically. Right. He followed orders. And I think that would be even more heart-wrenching because, again, it's your government who ordered your parents' death. The man who literally helped your two friends get on a path to achieve their dreams and has been a good person to you, obviously knew who the fuck you were and who your parents were, and then let you believe that Scar was the one who killed your fucking parents and ain't said shit.
The question is why? Now that's the answer I want now. Why did he do what he did? And
we'll get those answers. And there was another thing, and I know you freaking missed it, about why Scar's brother wanted to obtain the Philosopher's Stone.
I mentioned something about a wife or a girlfriend or something?
To bring back to help a loved one or bring back a loved one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard that.
Okay.
But
no pieces. Nothing's connecting.
Nope. Because again, I don't have the excessive knowledge that you do. I'm watching this for the first time, so all these.
I got it the first time I watched it,
but I'm not watching it in binge form like you probably did.
I didn't get to watch it in binge form. Thank you very much. I watched it when it first aired.
Well, and how many times did they repeat episodes? Well, I'm sorry I'm not picking up on all these little nuggets here and there. I have to watch it consistently for everything to kind of retain. That's why I said I would love to rewatch this without a podcast. So that way I can see if I can pick up on all the little details that I missed or see everything the way you see it. Because as we're doing this like this, I'm having to retain every episode to talk about it and then remember, okay, what did I remember from last episode into the next episode? And it's my brain doesn't work like that.
Well, I'm just saying more little breadcrumbs keep getting scattered.
Okay.
And your little mousy butt ain't picking them up.
Well, I will try harder.
So overall, how did you feel about the episode?
I mean, it was a establishing episode. I'll just say that. I mean, there was nothing about it that made me think like, oh my God, this is the greatest episode ever. But I felt like it was where we've said this before in the past. There are certain episodes that seem like it's just setting up things for things going forward. So this seemed like, okay, now we're establishing a few things because you have these arcs where they go and a lot of things are happening. And it's just like, sometimes you have episodes, it's just like one after the other where it's just like a lot is going on, just a lot of action, a lot of story. And then once we end those, we kind of plateau for a minute where they kind of have maybe a one-off or something of that nature. And then they establish something for the next time. And so the arc is starting to come back up.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we're going back up and getting another arc set up for what is essentially kind of, we're getting into our last run of episodes.
Yep.
So
it's basically just keep climbing up
mm-hmm.
as of right now.
But I mean, for everybody listening, you've still got a few more months worth of episodes until the end of the year. And
whoop, whoop.
Just so you're aware, in the month of December, so everything kind of gets crammed in for the year, so it doesn't kind of leak over into 2024. We're probably going to double up in December. You will get 2 episodes per week in December to finish everything out.
I was going to say, we still have the movie that completely finishes it all out.
That's also included in that. So for the month of December, keep that in mind. You will have 2 episodes per week, which will be to try and wrap everything up before the end of the year.
Yes. And we'll remind you again before it gets, that close.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right. Is there anything else you want to say about it?
Nope. I'm just ready to get some answers is all.
All righty. Then go ahead and lead us out.
Well, everyone, go listen on your favorite podcasting platform, which you're probably already doing. But if you've got friends who love anime and you want to show them this amazing, fun time talking about anime, point them to their favorite podcasting app and tell them to search Inspired by Weeaboo. And I guarantee it will be on there. And if they prefer something like YouTube, they can go over on YouTube and listen. And while you're on these platforms, give us a 5-star review. It helps our show grow. And we really appreciate it when you do. If you want to support the show financially, you can go to patreon.com/pencilpaperproductions. And if you just want a place where you can find all these little links, you can always look below in the show notes, or you can go to pencilpaperproductions.com/inspiredweeaboo for any and all things about the show.
All right, my little weebs. We will see you next time.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.